Good evening. I hope everyone is well and happy and enjoying our summer weather. This is part 2 of the video I promised you that would be more positive. I did the first half. Most of you liked it. Someone didn't. Probably because I'm saying things that are scary. This is the second half. And we're going to start right off with something else that relates to COVID. There is another broad-spectrum treatment that is going into human trials. It's extremely promising as an oral treatment, in other words, pills, for people who have managed to get the virus. It's not a vaccine, it's a treatment, but it looks very promising. And I thought I would mention that before anything else. I read an article last night, which I didn't know until last night, about how they have created a program that allows robotic AI to learn new tasks without being programmed for them. What do I mean by that? They talked very bluntly about creating a room. The robot had no programming for this room. Normally when you see these robots performing these tricks, they're not making decisions. They are in a room that they've been programmed to know where everything is and what they're doing. This room, no. This room, the robot walks in, has no background, doesn't know where anything is in the room, and has a group of tasks laid out that are not predetermined. They're not things he's been programmed or it's been programmed to do, and its success ratio is based on how many of those tasks it figures out what the person who created the room wants him to do with, or them to do with, the materials, and does it accurately. And it is entirely a self-learning AI program. Fascinating. And they were doing extremely well. They're not up to the speed that humans are yet, but they're getting there. Also on the robotic front, a new material has come out that will be used for actuators, except it won't be actuators. It will be a flexible material that can bend itself into the shapes needed and can hold up to 3,000 times its weight. That should start being seen in industrial robots within a couple of years, and in all other forms of robots within months thereafter. Maybe years. Could be years. There is a new substance is the wrong word. They're pretty sure they have identified another fundamental force of nature. Of course, you know that historically we have strong force, weak force, gravity, electromagnetism. I don't think I missed one, but maybe I did. And that's it. Those forces interact in waves that do everything we see. There's evidence now of a new fundamental force that was completely unknown and which we're now discovering. All those things add on to what we talked about before. And then there are the patents. I mentioned the patent that had been turned in by the Navy for a compact fusion generator. I got to see another patent, and if I can figure out how, maybe I can do a link. I'm going to see if I can do a link to that patent below. Otherwise, I'm going to see if I can't embed the actual document. I have a PDF of it. It is a method of reducing mass, of negative mass. That's how Jonathan explained it. I didn't get that from reading it, but you know something? I wouldn't. I'm not a physicist anywhere near, and I'm certainly nowhere near that level. In my own field, I might get it. In that field, no. Jonathan explains it as a negative mass, a method of generating negative mass. And if that is correct, and the article that was linked to the paper said the same thing. If that is correct, we will have faster than light travel within 50 years. Because the primary thing is the speed of light becomes a limiting factor equals mc squared, because the closer you get to the speed of light, the greater the mass of the object. So it literally becomes impossible to pass the speed of light. If this, and this is apparently one of the things they referred to as being reality changing, if you can reduce the mass or prevent it from increasing as you get close to the speed of light ceases to be a speed limit. It ceases to be a limiting factor, and you can go beyond it. Do I know that's how this works? No, I can't interpret the diagrams well enough. I understand that he is using a method of ionic generation. That much I get. Within a concave space, I don't know how that works, but it is one of the patents they said could change reality. It's one of the patents that the Navy referred to as being UFO related. What do I know? UFO report is not out yet. As I kind of predicted to people, they're going to hold that off as long as they can. They are trying to sanitize it. A former Secretary of National Intelligence, a Director of National Intelligence, has already said that he believes they've concealed things in there that he was aware of during his tenure. And I think ultimately, because Congress is on this now, they're going to be forced to reveal everything. Whether we'll ever hear about it or not, who knows? Congress will, I think. And that's actually kind of important. I don't necessarily want an unfettered military making decisions that could lead to things like the, eradication of our species. And if there's things there they know, things there they've seen, things there they've experienced, thank you very much. I would like civilian authorities to be making decisions regarding it. And that brings me to, I'm going to close with this. And I've mentioned it before, and I've mentioned it before, and I've mentioned it before. And I have an example I want to give. In Europe, they came up with a treatment using vitamin D in huge quantities. I think they also did it in Israel, although I'm not sure. But a very specific form of vitamin D, timed release over a number of days. And it reduced the death toll from COVID. So they gave this time-release drug to people coming into hospital who had the disease. It reduced the death rate from COVID. People with higher vitamin D counts are less likely to come down with COVID and less likely to die of it. Why? Well, we don't know exactly, but the likely reason is that it regulates the cytokine swarm. And it's the cytokine swarm and other related swarms in our bodies that kill most people who die of COVID. So you're potentially looking at a method of stopping that. What was the response of the establishment? In general, not all of it, just in general. Was it, we should immediately run more tests on this and find out if it works, just in case there's a serious variant that evades the vaccines? That would have been logical, right? But no, that's not the response. The response, and I saw it over and over and over, was to point to an attempt in Brazil at a hospital during that horrific spike they had in COVID to apply a single very large dose of vitamin D when people were hospitalized. Didn't work. Well, you see, if that didn't work, the whole thing must be wrong. No. If you are going to replicate a study, you must use the exact same protocols. You don't get to change the protocol. Change from a very specific version of vitamin D, and I'm not talking about a brand, I mean a specific version of vitamin D that is timed release, to a mass dose of a different form of vitamin D that's all given at once. Vitamin D, by the way, is water soluble. So if you give it all at once, it washes out of the body. You urinate it away. You don't give it once when they were giving it for several days. The two experiments are completely unrelated. But a certain part of the medical community is so determined, and they are standard, in my opinion, traditionalists. They are so determined that a nutrient is not going to help. And you know I'm not a nut on nutrients. I take lots of them, but I'm not nuts about them. They are so determined that no nutrient is going to make a major difference in the progress of the disease that scientists who know this is not how you compare studies are attempting to claim that two totally different studies are replicated samples of one another. That's what I talk about when I say that traditional science, not by any stretch all of it. I know many very good scientists who perform very good science, but unfortunately I know some who I don't know if, and I've said before, I think it turns into a form of religion. Maybe it does, but at least the behavior is very similar. We know this works. We know this is the truth. We're not going to change it. A good scientist never stops looking at every nuance of fact. Even if it's utterly ludicrous, you examine it, you replicate it if you can. There are other examples of this recently, some of which I don't completely understand, some of which I do. Archaeology, cosmogony, or cosmology, physics. I think all of our discoveries are very exciting, but I think two things need to happen. One is science needs to stop sabotaging itself. If you're going to do experiments, do experiments. If you're going to respect the scientific method, use all of it. If you're going to use Occam's razor, use it seriously. I.e., don't say, well, this incredibly more complicated thing is more likely than this simple thing when it fits your model. Be consistent. Yeah, sure, be rigorous, but be consistent and accept the results you get. That's why you're doing the experiments. That's why you're watching or observing the situation. That's how we can advance. Because whether we like it or not, we are plunging forward. Even if this group of patents is not 100%, and I've watched the people lining up, oh, that's impossible. Well, no. We think it's impossible. That doesn't make it impossible. I find it particularly difficult to believe that the military poured however many millions of dollars per year they poured for years and years supporting this research if they were getting nothing out of it. But even if they weren't getting what they wanted, it's another step down a very short road that we're making progress in at great speed. It's coming. We need to be ready, scientists and lay people. Thank you very much. It's been another positive thing. That last screed may not seem positive, but it really is if you think about it. I will talk to you again in a couple weeks. Be well and be happy.